Lonesome Lands podcast, Lonesome Report, special report. I don't know. This is our usual weekly one, but people have been asking for a special report, so we'll call this a special report. Um, October 20th, 8:31 p.m. That's what my computer says. So we're back at the nighttime shift. Because we got harvest going on and I just am not home during the day. So we have to do this at night. And then when both our brains are fried. But if you'll recall last week, we talked about how the soybean issue, and all these soybean farmers saying they're going broke, and all the news people are finding the soybean farmers that hate Trump and they're blaming it all on Trump and the tariffs and all that stuff. And so we said it's not Trump's fault. It's the agriculture system's fault for sending, all those corporate ag companies have built up this they've sent all this technology and production. They've taught the South American farmers how to produce more and these massive yields, and they're clearing rainforests and all that stuff. And that's why we have cheap imports. And then this week, and of course we were called Trump apologists and all this other stuff, which doesn't affect us at all. I mean, I still stand by that completely. So on Friday, Donald J. Trump comes out and says, you probably haven't memorized. What did he say? We're looking at a deal to lower beef prices, and we're going to work our magic on that
Right.
because beef prices are too high.
Well, that's right.
Friday, cattle market tanks on those words. Down the limit, some of the feeder calf futures down the limit. Live cattle numbers are down a lot. Shad's our market expert, so he'll analyze all that. But I mean, all you can say is Donald Trump tanked the cattle market on Friday. I mean, there's no other way around it, and people lost a lot of money. And now, people are kind of digging into this Argentinian deal. I guess a full review Sunday. He said that they are working on a deal. There was all sorts of speculation after his comment because he gave no details at all, and everybody was just kind of guessing what the heck does that mean, including Shad, who came out with a good video and kind of nailed it really. Because he gave the different theories, and he said, the obvious one is Argentinian because he's buddies with this guy down there.
hmm
And he's been in Trump's office, I think, or they've been together over the last week, and now they've
hmm
got this deal going. Um, and so anyway, then Sunday he said, yeah, that's what they're working on is importing more Argentinian beef, and that is going to bring down cattle prices. And we'll get into all that, I guess.
Beef prices.
Yeah, beef prices.
Well, I don't expect President Trump to understand anything about the beef industry and how small things turn into big things because just in the last 3 months, twice we have seen the rumor of a New World screwworm in the central part of the United States tank the futures market, right? And literally down the limit. So when he come out and said that, it caught everybody off guard. And Friday morning, in the first hour, feeder cattle futures locked down the limit, which means, back when I first started in this business, a $1.50 move was as big as it could go. And then they moved up to three. Well, now we're at $12 on not $12, $9, whatever it is. It's a huge amount of money. And the feeder cattle futures locked down the limit, which meant they just had to stop all trade. And the live cattle futures were down over $7 in a lot of months. So it had this great big huge effect on the feeder and live cattle futures market, which is different than the cash market. And then, of course, it had this big effect on everybody's psyche. And they're like, what is President Trump doing? Now we have to go back and analyze this new relationship with President Trump and President Melee. They're both kind of mega type people. They both have the same financial philosophy, and they're both conservatives. And I think Argentina is in real trouble now, and that's why Trump gave him a $20 billion bailout, which was very unfortunate because, that's taxpayer money and that wasn't approved by the people. And then he says, we're going to lower beef prices. Well, when the most powerful man in the world says, we're going to lower beef prices, what does everybody think? That means we're going to have to flood the market with live cattle or boxed beef to lower those prices at the retail level. Now, if we look back onto 2020 during COVID, we know that they flooded the market with imported beef and prices didn't go down. They kept going up, right? That's what we were doing is going up. So just because they flood the market with imported beef doesn't mean that these prices are going to go down in the store. In fact, it's likely that they won't go down in the store. Now, President Trump came out yesterday and had a journalist ask him, what his plan was, and he said we could, and I emphasize the word could, buy beef from Argentina, but that is not the plan. I mean, we don't know what the plan is. We don't know if, you know, likely that was his thought until he gets all this pushback. But he also talked to the Brazilian president 10 days ago over the phone. That could have been it. We know that the Texas cattle feeders and the Mexican government is pushing him to open the border, but we have the New World screwworm issue down there, so I don't think that's going to be it. So really, he said, we could import from Argentina, and that did not set well with the American beef producers and cattle producers because we're sitting on all-time highs here. And when you introduce, more supply, because Jim, we are actually living unusually in a supply and demand driven market right now. And we haven't lived under that type of market in a very long time.
And just to
So
be clear, the reason that exists is because we're at a, what is it, 60-year
since
low
since
in the
1951, we're at
it,
the lowest point
okay,
since 1951. And
74 year.
yeah, and
Um,
you want to say, well, drought. Everybody wants to say drought has pushed the people out. That's not the case. The case is centralization from the corporates have driven people out of business. That's why we are in the shape we're in. There are less producers on the land, thereby leaving less cattle on the land. And so that's where we've been headed. Is drought a part of it? Yeah, drought's a part of it down the line somewhere. Aged out producers are part of it. The attack on private property by NGOs and NGOs is part of it. The fruit of the matter is that we have less producers, thereby less cattle on the land, and that's why we're where we're at. So the answer, everybody asks the questions, well, what is the solution? Well, coming from me, and I'm certainly no expert, but the solution is President Trump stay out of it and let it work itself out. It will work itself out. It's going to take time because we don't produce those calves at a fast pace like they do with chickens or hogs or something like that. But it will work itself out. And in the meantime, let us enjoy these prices. Not that the profits are that high. I mean, we are profiting and that's fantastic, but we're also being inundated with these high input costs, just like everybody else. So if we can kind of get ahead here, me and you talk about it all the time about keeping, returning kids to the land and keeping our communities viable. This will help do that down the road. So when you have the most powerful man in the world speaking about lowering prices, it's not good.
right. And it goes back to what we've talked about a lot of times. This whole narrative of beef's too expensive.
Hmm.
Where does that come from? Are you seeing consumers like if it was too expensive, is the demand completely drying up? Because if it was, I mean, and we live in a supply and demand world, you know, it would. it would affect the market, but it's not. The demand is there, and
The
this,
demand, yes, absolutely. The demand is there. Now, I will admit there is a sector of people, and I have talked to some of them that say we've got to bring these prices down. We just can't afford beef prices in the store. And I get that. But I also think that when we have, and I'm going to get some heat on this, you go out and buy a $5 to $10 drink, and it's all about perspective. There's things in our lives that are so expensive all the time. But to me, as I've been thinking about this the last few days, I can feed our family of three on 1 pound of ground beef. Now, maybe that's unusual. I mean, maybe that's not like all families, but my context of it is we can feed our family of three for $6.34 or whatever it is in the store on ground beef. Now, to me, that is very cheap because if you go, I mean, just this week, I went to the grocery store. You go down the potato chip aisle, and a big bag of potato chips is now well over $5. There's no nutrients in that. There's no nourishment in that. And we have come to a time in history where those products are the products they think that's nutrition, and that's not nutrition. So to me, beef is still very cheap, a pound of ground beef. Now, if they want to flood this market, fine, let them flood the market, but we better label it because I believe that the American producer or the American consumer will pick our product. I believe that so wholeheartedly, that there's just no argument there. I feel like our consumers are very loyal to us, and especially now. Here's the problem I have on the other side of this that I think is working because and I know everybody gets tired of me talking about it's all about the land. President Trump was voted into office by the people of the land, agriculture, rural America. Those are the conservative values that they preach and teach and love. And so they love President Trump. Even the cattlemen, I mean, the cattlemen especially love President Trump. And they are looking beyond the profitability into the culture. And the culture is that we want a return to some sort of normalcy in the United States as far as moral obligations, social adjustments, all of that. We don't want the DEI, the climate change, all of this stuff that they've inundated with us from the left over the last administration. So there's that. So there's the cattle deal, and then there's that support that they get because they look beyond the economics. They're looking at the social and moral values that they stand for. Okay. Well, because of that, we have the ENGOs and the NGOs from the left that are socialists, communists, and they are doubling down because Trump is a threat to them, and the American people who maintain conservative values and believe in property rights and freedom and liberty are a threat to them. So they've doubled down during the Trump administration. Now you have President Trump saying we're going to lower these beef prices. That upsets his following. It upsets the apple cart. And so what happens then? Well, then these left-leaning ENGOs and NGOs, they come out with more bribery programs to pay the American producer to produce less off of his land and give over this property rights because now their backs, which are already against the wall, Jim, they're worried that they're not going to be able to make money because we got these government officials inserting their mouths into our business saying we got to lower these prices. It's very
yeah.
complex, but that's what I see going out.
And when you say that, you're talking about uh, conservation easements, climate change, the
Yeah.
climate smart commodity
Yes.
payments, all that kind of stuff, which we've talked a
Yes.
lot about. But yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes. So the solution, you're talking about what is the solution? Like, and
Hmm.
we've talked a lot about mandatory country of origin labeling. If
Hmm.
we could get that, it wouldn't matter. Imports wouldn't matter if we could, because the American consumer wants American beef, right?
That's
So is that
correct.
the solution? Go ahead and import all the Argentinian beef you want as long as we
I
have MCOOL?
I think that is one solution, but
Yeah.
I also think the best solution at this moment is every government official to be quiet. It's not their job to limit production. It's not their job to go out and find demand. It's not their job to do this. This is the consumer's job. They dictate the market. And that's what everybody's forgetting. I mean, we've seen the market crash of 74 thanks to Nixon, right? And I've heard about that all my life. So we've got to keep these government authorities or these leaders out of the melee. I mean, here's the deal. We have to let, I've always said it, you've heard me say it a million times. It's a freedom and liberty issue, and our consumers deserve the freedom to have the choice, right? So if we're pulling in a bunch of foreign beef, we have to at least let them give us the higher prices if they so choose. If they don't, fine, let them go to that other stuff. But it's really just a freedom issue for me, and it's a respect issue to our consumer. They deserve it. And so do our producers, by the way. Our producers work hard. We have the best product on earth, the most regulated. We're the most conservation minded. We produce the best product on the hoof or in the meat, either way. And that should be rewarded, not stepped on by the global corporate cabal that is paying to play into this very corrupt system in the United States where these people can dictate or accidentally speak on issues that can have uh, damaging, very damaging effects on the markets. Now, I
Yeah.
will I will say this, Jim. The cash market did not take a huge hit. It did in places. Those little bitty light calves were a lot cheaper. Maybe the last calf cows, they were cheaper, but in the midsection, they weren't very much cheaper. Might have been $3 or $4 cheaper. So there was still a lot of positivity in the cash market today. And there were some sales on Saturday that I have to applaud these people buying cattle on Saturday after Trump said that and didn't know what the board was going to do today. That took some huevos rancheros. But yeah, I say, President Trump, please, please let the consumer decide.
And one thing I think is important to remember is we don't know what the deal is, right? Like I've always said knee-jerk reactions are always the worst reactions. So, I mean, and Trump said what he said, the market did what it did, but in the end, we don't know what the deal is, right? He
No,
says we've got a
correct.
deal going. And so, it could be anything really. People still don't know. And after that comment Friday, before the comment Sunday, my thought was he was just kind of talking, which is what he does sometimes, and nobody even knew anything about Argentina. But, and then Sunday it kind of switched where he wasn't just talking, he had this deal, but we still don't know what it is.
Well, and
And
maybe he doesn't have a deal with Argentina or anybody else at this time because his comments, Jim, were actually we could COULD trade with Argentina. We could import Argentinian beef. That did not say that that's what he was doing. I have thought through the day today that perhaps maybe he was just testing the battleground here
right.
with his constituents. And that could be it. He's getting a lot of blowback, obviously, from every direction and all over America in the cattle sector and the beef sector. Well, actually, more the cattle sector. Um, so we'll see. I mean, your point is highly valid.
Yeah. I mean, at this point we really don't know.
We
All
really
we
don't
can
know.
say is what was said. So, yeah,
Correct.
hopefully going forward, he comes out, does the right thing, and has a deal that doesn't do what it did on Friday. So,
No, absolutely. And I think that, it bears witness to fully understand and take to heart that, you just said you were getting all kinds of calls. I'm getting all kinds of calls. Not that we can fix anything, but people just they need to have a relationship to understand, you know, to make their thoughts valid. And their thoughts are valid. I mean, it affects everybody in a
Yeah.
different way, and everybody sees everything from a different perspective. But at the end of the day, when, the most powerful man in the world talks about lowering beef prices, that's going to affect all producers, no matter which part of the chain you're in, on a independent basis, right?
Yeah, and I guess to get back into kind of the nitty gritty, you've been on the phone a lot. I've tried to call anybody I know that has any sort of connections. This seems like a 100% Trump thing from what I've heard. USDA had no, this is not a USDA policy issue, from the people I've talked to. Is that what,
That's I think that's
like,
right. And
he pretty much went in with his buddy
mhm,
and was like, hey, we got high beef prices. You're broke. Let's
yeah,
fix this. And
that's right.
what became obvious is, and that's what, that's kind of how he operates. And if you want to say, ha ha, this is what you voted for, it's okay. I mean, it's still,
That's fine
yeah,
by
it's
me.
not
I
Kamala Harris.
still I still
Right.
support Trump.
Yeah.
And I think if like why do we expect Trump to understand what he just did? That's
Hmm.
not his purview. That's not his experience. He doesn't understand. I mean, these leaders have been, had the wool pulled over their eyes for so long and are getting conflicting messages about the truth of the industry. Well, how do we expect him to know? And I'm not saying he did right, because he did not do right on
Yeah, I mean,
that
the whole
comment.
Argentina thing is very frustrating for people who voted
Yes.
for Trump, and they should be
Yes.
frustrated because the whole Argentina, every reason why they like this Malay guy is he went into Argentina and he was going to cut all the spending and he was going to, reduce government, make small
Hmm.
government. And then it's like, okay, do you think if they would ever send us $20 billion? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, and that was the whole Doge thing. Like, and Elon Musk was had a chainsaw with the Malay on the stage. You remember that? They had like this gold
Yeah.
chainsaw
Yeah.
representing cutting spending. And then it's like we're sending them a check for all this money. It's ridiculous. And
Well,
then,
and on top of that, Trump was absolutely asked about that on Air Force One last night, and that journalist says, "Well, what are you going to say to the American producers?" And he looked at her like she was crazy and kind of got a little rough with her and said, "You don't understand what kind of shape Argentina is in." Well, as far as I'm concerned, that's not
yeah,
the America First problem. That is
yeah, I
not our
mean,
problem. We shouldn't have
right.
to bail that out. We still have veterans on the streets without a home. We still have hungry kids. We're still feeding these kids bad food in the schools. I mean, these are issues that could be resolved at home with $20 billion. I don't care what Argentina is doing. And I'm not against Argentina, and I'm not against trade, fair trade, but I still think that this didn't seem very America first.
Yeah, and just on the face, it's just kind of ass backwards because we all have seen cheap imports, and you can import as much as you want. I think so. Jack Payne wrote something up, and I'm going to post this on Lonesome Lands as like an article. He has it on Facebook also, but I'm going to read a little bit of it. Cheap imports does not equate cheap beef to consumers. Cheap imports only equals increased profits for the packers. Um, in the long term, cheap imports have the exact uh, opposite effect on the beef prices in America because your smaller regional packing plants and mom and pop butcher shops, meat markets, don't have access to loads and massive containers of beef. They cannot compete in the market with JBS, Tyson, etc. The big players lower beef temporarily to break the smaller operators and buy them out. That's how the that's how the big have gotten so big and the small processors and meat markets are boarded up. I mean, that just goes into like this is not America first. When you
No.
have small independent businesses, they don't have any idea. I'm assuming how to get Argentina beef if they start importing a bunch of it. I mean, you're not going to see that, and that's what you know saved during COVID. I mean, that's what saved a lot of people, and it gave them the ability to actually buy beef is those small independent markets.
Absolutely.
He also said in there, I didn't highlight this, but he made the point that these beef packers know exactly where the beef price can be and how much people are going to pay for it. And you can, like I said, you can import all the beef you want, but if they know where that price is and where they can get people to pay at the most,
Mhm.
they're not going to drop prices. It just none of it really made sense, so it's just incredibly frustrating for everybody, I guess.
Yeah, I feel like it's just more of a favor type deal. Um, like I said, I think the whole solution is to let it work itself out. And if it takes 2 years, that's fine. Let it work itself out. But even NCBA came out with a statement, and everybody's flabbergasted at that at what they said. So I don't know. I
NCBA
wonder.
comes out with whatever needs to
Yeah,
be
I
said.
get that.
They
I get
talk out
that.
both sides of their mouth. I mean, yeah, great job for them. But that brings up the question too, like who convinced Trump that we need to lower beef prices? Like that's the main question, I think. Like where is he hearing that? Is it he's watching Fox and Friends every morning and they're bringing up
Well, and
news
just
stories about high beef prices and
and I think that is part of it. And just like what you said, NCBA can fly either way. It wasn't it not too long ago that they're the ones that said, "Yeah, beef prices are a little too high." I had a call about that today, and I had remembered. I think it was Colin. Is when they went on their little tour. Remember?
what was the tour? Refresh my
Remember they
memory.
went over. They were in South Dakota at a couple of meetings,
The
and
Sustainable Beef Tour?
I don't know. Is that what it was? I don't
Yeah, they
know.
did South. Oh, you okay? Ethan Lane and that guy were at the
Hmm.
South Dakota meeting. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway,
But yeah, I mean, it dang sure brought some activity to uh, the thought processes of American beef and cattle producers and to the market. I mean, when you lock the limit down, whew, lock the board limit down.
how at what time of day did that happen?
First in the first hour, it locked
Yeah,
the feeder cattle were locked limit down in the first hour. And
yeah,
once they lock limit down, they're shut down for the day, right?
and that just scares the pants off
Scared
everybody
the hell
when
out of everybody,
yeah,
right? And I'm not saying, listen, because we are in this supply and demand driven market, there is still demand, and these prices were high. I mean, even on, Friday, these cash prices, I think Beaver, Oklahoma set new records. Somebody up in the Northern
yeah,
Plains set new records. Those cash prices were high, but it's still they went. Everybody went in to the weekend just kind of in limbo, and I'm super happy that it did get people to talking. I mean, not by the hundreds, but by the thousands, people are talking about it. And really, I love it because it. Listen, I'm a protectionist. We all know that. And I love it when these people come out and say, let's protect our own herds. Let's protect our nation, our communities. I love that. I love it.
yeah. One thing that was also interesting is the number of people thought like they couldn't wait to hear what we said. I mean, that was like, which I get it. I've kind of been out of the loop for a while, and but it's yeah, I guess
No, it was really good. I
people
mean,
want people are waiting for this to come out. So,
right.
and there's only one thing to say. And I think it also gives us a chance to remind people kind of what we do, like why I started Lonesome Lands, why it's called Lonesome Lands. It's just like for the people. And we're not saying that we are the voice of anyone. Like we are just
Mm-mm.
two people from rural America. That's what Lonesome Lands kind of represents. And some places are much more lonesome than others. Jack Payne lives in the most lonesome, and he's has some of the best analysis. Steve Stratford put out a great video too
Oh,
that
he
we tried
did.
to share
It was
um,
good.
on our Facebook, and so just all of these voices kind of. But in the end of the day, and now we've kind of gotten to this point where we've made relationships with different people at USDA and different organizations. And so it's always kind of like, well, who's saying this or who's saying that, and what can we say about what? But at the end of the day, like we are here for, to give the voice of the American producer. And if something
Hmm.
like this happens, like people have called us Trump apologists and all that other stuff, but it goes into that soybean deal. Like we look at what's going on and tell you, our opinion as honestly as we can, and our opinion as honest. There's only one way to put this, and that is Donald
Well,
Trump tanked the cattle market.
yeah.
Um, and
Yeah, he
so
really did. But I think what makes us different here is, is we actually are hands-on. Like and let me speak for me because, and you and I are very much alike, but I make my living solely by the cattle. That's what pays my bills. And I have to figure it out. And I am certainly not the smartest guy. I mean, there's a few guys out there that hate my guts, and I'm sorry about that. They don't really know me,
don't be
but
sorry
they
about that.
but they hate me. But my perspective, just so everybody knows, comes from my experience. And my experience, I started at the bottom and we've scraped the bottom of the barrel a lot of times, Jim, just like you have.
Yeah,
And
and
so
but
that
that also it helps you relate. Like when you talk, we hear from these
sure.
people who make their living off of cattle, and when
Yes, that's what
something
I'm
like this
saying.
happens, I feel for them
Absolutely.
because there can be nothing more frustrating and kind of scary too.
Well,
It's like we're
it's the
finally in a
unknown.
place where we can pay our bills,
Hmm.
and then you know.
Yeah,
And it's like my
it's
dad said, he goes, if you've been around long enough, you knew this thing was going to collapse at some point. That's what he said today.
well,
And then he
and
said, you just never thought it would be, something Trump said.
And we listen, we know that we're walking in uncharted territories and have been for 6 or 8 months, right? I mean, we have every time we think, every time I thought it hit a high, let's take for example, people die knowing that I hedged my yearlings last fall at 273, and I thought that was a hell of a hedge, and here we are over 273 before Trump's deal. I mean, we're in uncharted territory. When that happens, nobody really knows what's going to happen because we think, well, when we got to 236 on the feeder board, fall feeder board, I told everybody, I said, this is the top. There's no way we can go to 240. And my buddy was telling me, Shad, we're going to 270. And I'm like, there ain't no way, Danny Miller. There ain't no way we're going to 270. And we did. We went to 270. And when it hit 270, I said, Danny, we're going to $4. I'm positive we're going to $4 because there's just no rhyme or reason to it. And I'll tell you what I think all of this comes down to is we are at the tipping point of being vertically integrated. I think this is it.
Yeah, I mean, we can get into that some other time where the Chad has to fly out first thing, like in the middle of what time? You got to get up at 4 in the morning and it's
No,
after
I got
9 o'clock now.
no, I have to be at the airport at 4 and it's a 2 hour drive.
So
So
you
we
got
got
to
to leave
leave
it.
at 2.
We're gonna try to leave at 1:30 just in case we have a flat tire or something, or I run over a pig on the way to the airport or whatever.
So Shad's here for the people. He could be resting up.
I love the Lonesome Report, and I love communicating with the people. And I'm glad you asked me to do this a long time ago because it has opened up a lot of communication between just the common guy like
Yeah,
me and you and people who, there's a vast difference between production in Tennessee and production in Nevada and everywhere in between. And it's really been cool to meet all these people and become friends with them. I feel like I'm friends with 99.99% of all of them. And if they hate me or hate the Lonesome Report, they keep it quiet. And the support's been great. And I like that.
yeah,
So that's
very
why I'm
much.
here late tonight, bro.
Yeah. So one thing before you head off to bed,
I'm
um,
not in a hurry.
I feel like when something like this comes up, we can miss a lot of things, and so there's one other topic. I mean, we've mainly got two topics, but this Voluntary Grazing Permit Act. There's been a bill introduced to get rid of that, which is really just allows all the grazing on federal lands. And I think this is going to become more and more of a really serious issue because there is a building This Western Watersheds project is
Yes.
what's their goal is to get all cattle off of federal land and
Yes.
not allow cattle grazing on federal land. And a lot of ranchers, Jack Payne has a ton of federal land. And a lot of ranchers, that's their only way to feed their cattle. And so we talk about losing 107,000 small farms, cattle farms and ranches in the last 5 years. We talk about that all the time.
Hmm.
So our number one thing is to protect that kind of stuff. And if this gains any sort of traction, it's this is just one of those things that's probably never going to go away now. And it's not, it's kind of something new, I feel like. Um,
Yeah, it's not going to go away. It was introduced by Adam Smith, a Democrat from Washington, and it's House Rule 6314, which is the Voluntary Grazing Permit Retirement Act. And I can't wait for Harriet Hagman to talk to us about this. She will have a lot to say, but this act affects not only U.S. Forest Service permittees but BLM too. It's both. Uh, it's all federal lands, right? And basically, what they're doing is they're going to enable NGOs and ENGOs. They're changing the rules so these NGOs and ENGOs can uh, take over however they acquire it. We've seen in the Northern Plains that the World Wildlife Fund in the APR, American Prairie Reserve, have bought ranches with allotments. They changed the rules, and then that would allow them to retire these um, grazing permits to no longer, which would no longer allow livestock grazing. And then on the end of that, livestock grazing could never be reintroduced to it at all. And this is going to be the way this kind of reads is that it will be overseen by third party. And we've talked about third party verification and all this stuff all these years, Jim, and here it is. All of this stuff we're talking about is coming to fruition, and it really focuses on the 16 western states, and takes the not rule making, but the rule procedures um, authority away from both the Secretary of the Interior and the Secretary of Agriculture. So this is going to be a precedent setter, and I think we better get this out to the people.
yeah, we'll have a lot more. I mean, there's so much in there that you just said. Like we could do a full episode easy on that. Probably with Jack. I mean, this is what Jack has been working with
Yeah.
people on, and our whole thing is make it easier and more profitable for ranchers to be able to use federal lands and graze cattle. And
Well,
now
we
we have
we
this.
yeah, we know that we are working with Secretary Rollins to open up more grazing. That's one of the solutions to getting kids, younger people back on the land is opening these federal lands up even further to more production, right? And so with what I just talked about being these ENGOs doubling down during this administration because they know that this could happen. I think this is a fruit of what they're working on right now is this House Rule 6314. I've heard of it before this year, but it had never really been pushed. But now that Trump is in, and we got a bunch of freedom makers in authority or leading the nation, this was the time for them to continue to double down on. I mean, it's all about taking the cattle off the land. That's what this reads, and taking the livestock off the land forever. So, a big deal coming down the road.
All right, man. You got much
Yeah.
else? This is late at
Uh,
night. We did
no,
way
I'm
better than
I
last week. So last week's ended up being like 28, 29 minutes long. We recorded for an hour. Um, Shad's one thing, like both our brains were fried, and I did good on the soybean thing. I felt like, but then like once we started talking, Shad said that the Nature Conservancy total revenue was $1.5 trillion dollars, and it wasn't like you said it probably three or four times. So I just like, how do we even? It was just
I
a
was
mess.
totally delirious last week. I mean, I had
And
been
here
up
I told
since,
Shad, here's how I started out, and Shad made me switch. So I didn't want to seem like a fraud, but this is how I've been looking all day, every day, driving trucks and tractors and getting the corn out. Um,
well, if it makes you feel better, we're buying lots of calves right now. We bought a ton of cattle today, and I feel like you. I just feel like my head is
yeah, I
spinning.
mean, once,
And we got these interest rates and we're buying these high dollar calves and I'm like, "Holy cow. What are we going to do here? How are we going to?" So every single load, I'm putting it in the computer, figuring out a break even. I'm not letting anything get by me. I'm like, I've got to know down to the penny because we're just dealing with so much money. It's scaring me to death.
yeah, right on. Yeah, it's, anyway, I'm gonna have a
But
late night. I gotta get this thing put
I
together.
am excited. I'm going to go to New York in the morning and I got an interview on Thursday afternoon with John Stossel TV, and we're going to talk about climate change, and that's going to be fun. I'm taking my wife and my kid. That's going to be fun. We're going to go eat an expensive steak. I'm going to make her pay for it because she already bought the tickets to, I don't know, some Broadway play.
Wow, you are going all out.
I'm
What's the
excited about
Broadway play?
um
Paint Your Wagon?
no Mufasa. What is
Oh
that?
yeah, The Lion
The
King.
Lion King. The
Oh,
Lion
there you
King.
go.
Dude, I've never been to a Broadway play, but I will tell you this. When she told me how much those tickets were, I about fell out of my chair.
Yeah,
How much do you think a ticket to a Broadway play is?
I have
Specifically, The Lion King.
I have no idea. 500 bucks?
$220
Okay.
each.
That seems cheap. I think people pay that to go to football games.
Cheap.
Which I
That's
guess football game. I don't
that's why
know.
I don't go to football games or
Yeah, I don't
sports
want to go to
events.
either one.
Uh,
My
well, I
wife's
do.
been to the Lion King play in Omaha, and she takes the kids and goes with her family, and I stay home. You don't need to spend that money on me.
I'm going to New York for the food.
Delmonico's?
No, it's not Delmonico's. We're going to starts with the G, some big steakhouse.
Delmonico's was the original. Like I read, it was in that Cattle Kingdom book that I've talked about before. They were like the ones that they were like the steakhouse that started steakhouses.
Wow.
I think it's in New York. I don't know. Be cool to go to though.
Well,
You'd probably spend more than your Broadway play at wherever you're going. So,
I don't know. I don't know.
all
I,
right.
I all right.
Lonesome Report. Go to lonesomelands.com, click on subscribe,
Well,
support what
thanks
we're
for
doing. We'll be
yeah.
better. Well, I don't know. We'll probably still be at it next week, but coming up, we'll do them in the middle of the day where our heads are clear.
My head's pretty clear tonight. I sure appreciate all the support, especially this week. I think I gained like not I don't really count, but I think I gained like 2,000 followers in the since Trump said that. And
On
I'm like,
what? Facebook or what?
yeah, on Facebook.
I thought you were limited out. 5,000 on a personal account.
That's on your friend list. All I know is
Oh,
last
they can
week, right
follow
below
you.
my name, it had like 8,000 followers, and now I've got almost 10,000
Holy
followers.
smokes.
I don't know what that means, but we've had a lot of good feedback. And I
You're
do get
famous.
I get a lot of messages about Lonesome Report. So good job, Jim Mundorf.
You're my hero.
You're my hero, bro.
All right. I'm sure people are tired of hearing this. See you next week.
Adios. Adios.